So I built a landscaping business that did over $250,000 in revenue, all while I was still in college. I didn't have investors, I didn't have rich parents, and I definitely didn't know what I was doing when I started, but I figured it out. This video is going to be a little bit different. I want to tell you specific things that I learned, and this can apply to landscaping. This can apply to any service business you guys have, or in general, if you guys are thinking about starting anything in 2025. I do think this video would be worth it to give it a watch because I'm going to give you good tips that I've learned from doing things in the real world and building a real business. I want to show you how you can do the same, whether you're running a service business or you're thinking of starting one. I learned a lot. And I probably learned more from mowing lawns and mulching yards than I ever did in a classroom. I have a 5-year, I was in college for 5 years, bachelor's in business. And I went to a pretty good business school in the state that I'm in. And I'm going to break down probably I would say anywhere from 6 to 7 or 8 biggest lessons that I took from scrambling for my first customer to managing a 6-figure operation and how you can apply these to whatever you're building. Because this isn't just about landscaping. This isn't just about me. It's about how to run a real business, earn trust, and create freedom. So I have my notes here that I've kind of written down, and I put a lot of thought into this video, so I might be all over the place here. But the first one is going to sound controversial, but the first tip that I would give you guys is, obviously, you should aim to be the best at what you do. Like, you should aim to have the best product or the best service. That should be the goal. However, my first point I want to make is you don't need to be the best. You need to be known, right? Sales, marketing, brand visibility, that is honestly more important than, the service itself. The reason being is if I have a yard, right? Let's say I have a yard and I need my yard cut and I have a graduation party and, I want the yard cut for when the guests come and I need someone to cut my yard in the next day or two. I don't really give a crap how good you cut the yard, but I want it done and I want to be able to trust that you're going to get it done. And I probably have someone in my mind that I'm thinking of calling, right? You need to become that landscaper. You need to become that business where your ideal customer thinks of picking up the phone or thinks of sending you a message, not your competition. Right? When I first started, obviously I was trying to do the best job I could, right? I was trying to, really, bust my tail and do better work than everyone else, cleaner lines, faster service, make the mulch look perfect. But guess what? Really half the battle is just getting noticed, right? What's more important is you need yard signs. You need, branded shirts. You need neighbors seeing your truck in driveways. You need to be in local Facebook groups. Visibility is the oxygen of small business. And the thing is, you could be the world's best kept secret, but that just means you stay broke in silence, right? You need to become known. So that's the first point. The second point I'd like to make is this applies to service businesses, but this also applies to even the online era. And I would say is word of mouth is still king, but only if you leverage it. So what do I mean by that? Referrals and old school marketing built my entire early client base. I mean, I got to the point where I was cutting anywhere from probably 35 to 45 lawns a week. And that mainly came from just referrals and word of mouth. This all started around the 2020, when all that stuff was happening, if you know what I mean, with, the C word, the COVID, all that type of stuff was going on and people were getting laid off. That was when I kind of launched my landscaping business at the time, lawn care business. And what I did was I literally was driving around the nice neighborhoods in my area and was just literally putting door hangers on people's doors myself. My girl at the time helped me. I had friends that were helping me. I was paying them money to do them as well. But I literally was running this operation where I was just taking over neighborhoods by word of mouth. And I also, every Christmas, I would do handwritten notes to customers that I did, jobs for and stuff like that. Gave out business cards to neighbors. I knocked doors sometimes after finishing a job. I literally sometimes they're called 5-arounds, where you would knock the 5 doors of houses around a job you just did. You're not trying to sell them on the spot, but just more so bring awareness of kind of what you're doing. And you don't need to spam. You just need to be present and make a genuine impression. People love sharing good service, especially in tight-knit neighborhoods. The third point I want to make is trust is the most underrated business advantage. So I booked more jobs and got more repeat customers just by being the guy who showed up on time and did what I said I would do. And that is, it sounds so simple, but I'm telling you, it is so rare in 2025. And I see this all the time with homeowners. I've said this before, but I still do, mulch installs and landscaping jobs on top of my sales job. And I was just talking to someone a couple weekends ago where the guy was saying how, he was trying to get a contractor to come out and do something with his roof. And he's like had like 3 people come out, take a look at the roof, and like they're all like, ghosted him, or like they didn't hear back for like a month. And it's like, if you can just show up, meet the client, have good communication skills, not look like an idiot, dress well, and just talk like a normal person, and quote them a job and get them that quote relatively fast, like within like, let's say 48 hours, and show up and do what you say and do a good job, they're probably going to want to use you again, because you're already ahead of like 90% of people. And the thing is, like, obviously you want to have the branding, you want to have the marketing, but people just want someone they can rely on, right? I had a client tell me this recently. This is another example where I did a job Memorial Day weekend, like it was like last weekend in May, and this guy had gotten multiple other quotes, and the other quotes were cheaper than mine. Like, he had told me that I was the most expensive quote that he got, but I was talking to him the day of the job when I was doing the work, and he's like, honestly, like, I like you. You're a hardworking dude, and I went with you because I know that you're going to do a good job, and I did. I delivered. I do what I say, and that's what people just don't understand. Like, you don't have to be the cheapest. You really don't. Now, I will say, if you're selling a service that, like, more so, like, I'm trying to think of a perfect example. Like, if you were trying to start like a food delivery business or something like Uber Eats, unfortunately, with a service like that, unless you're going to like set it up on their kitchen table for them or something, like, unfortunately with services like that, you're probably going to be competing with price a little harder. But something that's like, like a landscaping or like a power washing or like a, carpet installation, building a patio, roofing, electrician, plumbers, all those type of stuff, even stuff in more corporate environments like lead gen, agencies, SMMA, copywriting, branding, like YouTube content creation, TikTok, reel creation, all that type of stuff. Price will matter, but honestly, just you being able to deliver on a timeline that you say you're going to and sticking to your word will be more important than price alone. So that was my third point, is just the trust factor. Fourth one is be ridiculously specific on estimates and quotes. So when I give a quote for a job, or I give an estimate for a job, you want to break everything down super specific. I used QuickBooks for stuff like this, back in the day, and still do a lot. But if you quote a job and say, oh yeah, this is going to be $1,500, they're going to be less likely to want to pay the $1,500 if you just tell them that, versus if you break it down exactly why it costs that. And I feel like this is common sense, but it is hard to know what stuff costs or what you should price services at. So what I would recommend is, if you're just starting out, whether it's in this type of industry or whether it's more of like an online type of business, you should be competitive pricing. I never think you should be the cheapest person. Let me just preface that. I don't think you should ever be the cheapest person. I also don't think you should be the most expensive when you start out, but come in at a reasonable price and deliver on what you say. And the level of clarity made people trust me, right? When I break down a quote and I tell them exactly what it's going to cost and why, it makes them trust you more. And I'm going to go deeper into this right now. Not only should you break it down, but I'm telling you, you have to be ultra specific, right? Don't say, hey, I'm going to trim the shrubs or cut your shrubs. Say, I'm going to trim this shrub, the shrub on this side of the house, these few on here. I'm going to trim it this much off. Like I'm saying, like, be very specific, because it'll save you in the long run of running into problems or people being unhappy with, the end result. Another point I want to make is, don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. Undercharging is a fast path to burnout. Like, when I first started, I was nervous to ask for I remember the first time I charged someone like $3,000 for a job, I was like nervous to like send the estimate, because it's like, wow, like, it's a lot of money. But you have to understand, it's a lot of money to you. They might not necessarily see it that way, because the value they get from you pulling up, trimming all those shrubs, installing a bunch of mulch, pulling all the weeds out of their beds, edging the beds, cleaning the deck, power washing the back side of the house, spraying for weeds, cleaning up out of leaves, like, that might be worth $3,000 to them, depending on how big their house is, right? Like you have to understand that there's a, like, business is just an equal exchange of value, right? Someone pays you $1,000, $2,000 to do something, and you give them something back, that result, that to them and to you, it's an equal exchange of value. And what made me realize this was I used to watch another YouTuber actually years ago. This was more of like a landscaping specific YouTuber. And the guy was talking about how, like, you're afraid to charge a homeowner a couple grand when you're pulling up to the house with like 20 grand in equipment that you had to pay for yourself. And then in their driveway, they got like a Porsche, they got a nice truck, they got a $400,000 house. Like, dude, they can afford it. And they're doing well, right? So like, don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. And once I raised my prices, I started attracting people who actually valued what I did, and that changed everything. You shouldn't win if you're bidding jobs, whatever business model you're in. If you're bidding jobs or giving people quotes for your services, and 100% of people are saying yes, I'm sorry, but you're quoting your services too low. You're undervaluing yourself. You should not win every single job. You shouldn't, and you shouldn't want to, right? So you're charging for your skill, your reliability, the experience you bring to the table, and all the equipment and softwares or whatever it's going to be to do it. And, just do not be afraid to charge what you're worth. Another point I want to make, and this is a little bit lawn care specific, but it still could be relative to other industries, but route density is more important. So when you're cutting grass, right, more clients in one neighborhood or more clients in one city is smarter than being all over the city. Right, like when I'm in my prime, when I was cutting a lot of lawns, I would not drive more than like 15, 20 minutes max from my house to a lawn. And I would do it in a way where even if I did have a lawn that's a little bit farther, I would start with that one and work my way back. And like, you want to be cutting the lawn, getting in the truck, and like driving for a couple minutes max the next one, right? You could hit like, there was even one time where I had like 4 houses like on the same actual street, and I would just drive them. I would just literally ride on the. I had a Skag mower at the time from house to house, but you'll just make literally way more money doing it this way, right? Look at your current clients, who lives near them, and start clustering your routes and making that area your territory. And the reason this is so important is because obviously this is very specific to like lawn care, but this is actually very applicable to any really business model, right? Whether you're a service business, then literally route density is important, but also let's say you're running some type of online business, like let's say you're running like a lead gen business, a marketing business, or something that helps agencies, or one of these more online 2025 type businesses. Like, look for people that you're already helping, or look for people, like maybe you have like a person or two or a client or two that you've helped, and get them to refer you to other people that are quote unquote close to them, not necessarily geographically, but in the niche, right? Find people who are close to your current customers in your ICP, right? So obviously in this scenario, I'm talking like legit geographic location, but even with online businesses, I'm talking more so find people that are super, super close to the people you already help. They're out there, guys. They're out there. There's a lot of platforms, YouTube, freaking Reddit, LinkedIn, like Facebook groups. Like, there's a lot of ways you can find similar personas to kind of what you're looking for. The seventh point I want to make here is a good website and Google listing makes you look legit, and it goes a long way. You don't really need like a super fancy site. I actually don't even have my site up anymore, but when I did, you can get a cheap domain off like GoDaddy. And then I think I paid like maybe someone like $400 at the time to make me a site. And like, it was nice. I had like a video of me talking about like the company services we offer. I had like a whole gallery of pictures of like work I'd done from like, mulch installs, like, cleanups, like shrub trimming, like certain edging, plantings. Like I would used to plant a lot of plants, trees, stuff like that. So having the pictures on there and social proof, it makes you look legit. And, this is very applicable to the service business industry, but this is also applicable to 2025 and more of the online models. Like, you need to have a personal brand. You need to have a brand that shows what you're doing. People just like to see what you're doing, right? And I've noticed it's gotten a lot more common now over the last few years is like being more real, showing people your day-to-day life and kind of like what you're doing in your business or in your life. And I think that doing that makes people respect you more, right? It just builds credibility. And like I said before about the price thing, people don't necessarily choose you because you're the cheapest. They choose you because they trust you. And having a website or a personal brand, or you're pumping out content like that, is going to make people trust you more, 100%. Last point I want to make here, and this is more of like a money one, is don't forget taxes. Always save 30% or it'll come back to haunt you. That might sound generous, but that 10K month that you always hear, like when the gurus on Instagram always talk about 10K per month, that 10K per month isn't really 10K. They're probably not even talking about expenses, and they're probably not even talking about taxes, right? It doesn't mean you're rich, you're responsible. And even in this video, I'm claiming that I made $250,000 in revenue in college as a landscaping business. Just so you're aware, I'm not claiming I profited $250,000. I'm claiming that was my revenue. But I had expenses. I normally ran around 40 to 50% margins, so you guys can figure that out for yourself. But I'm just saying, like, over the course of 3 summers, did $250,000 in revenue while a full-time college student, and I'm not claiming I profited that. But what I'm saying is be smart with the money you're getting, right? Don't forget taxes. Make sure you're setting aside money for a rainy day. Make sure you're building up that 6 months expenses emergency fund. Make sure you're investing at least a couple $100 or something a month, like if you can, like into mutual funds, S&P 500, whatever it may be. But I made this, mistake early, where it's like I would get like a big check from a job, and like, I wouldn't necessarily set as much as I needed aside, and then tax day would come around. I'd be like, damn it, like I gotta, pay this. But make sure you're tracking everything, save receipts or track it digitally through QuickBooks, or, whatever you're going to use. There's so many softwares out there nowadays that help you keep track of expenses and stuff like that. Like, you don't need to be a CPA. You just need to be organized. So, and I want to kind of bring this together. This is going to be a little bit more of like a longer form video, but I want to bring this together at the end and just know that you guys can apply these to any business, right? Like, even if you're not in landscaping like I was, right? Maybe you're starting a cleaning service. Maybe you're doing like a plumbing business. Maybe you're doing like an agency, or you're doing like a copywriting, or maybe you're doing a personal brand, YouTube content creation, or anything else. Whatever it may be, these 8 lessons still apply, right? Be visible, build trust, make it easy for people to buy from you, charge your worth, be smart with logistics, don't neglect the back end, and just stay consistent, guys. It's the fundamentals, the boring stuff. But that is what makes a difference between hustling and actually winning. And, quite frankly, guys, I didn't have a blueprint when I started, right? I literally had like a push lawnmower that I would pick up with my bare hands, throw into a trailer, drive around, and start cutting grass. But I was eager, I was hungry, and I was willing to learn. If I can hit, doing like type of revenue I did in college from landscaping, so can you. It's not necessarily easy, but it's because most people never stick with it long enough to get good. And all these lessons that I learned, hustling outside and doing all this stuff, shoveling rock, shoveling mulch, all that gave me all these business lessons that I'm going to apply to this YouTube channel. I'm going to apply to whatever other businesses I start down the line. I'm going to apply to my sales stuff. Like, there's all these things that you can learn, and it's like that's the beauty of life. Is like, I think, I forget what the statistic is, but I saw something somewhere where like the average like multimillionaire that like hit it big in a business, they tried and started like 7 or 8 different businesses. And there was another guy I saw, I forget his name, but he was saying how he started like 20 different businesses before one hit. Like, I do think that's a little overkill, but the point is, like, you have to try a bunch of different stuff, take those lessons from business and life and apply it to the other things, and keep learning. You know how stocks have compound interest and they compound over time? It's the same thing in business. You learn lessons and they compound over time. It's like in boxing, right? It's like you're boxing, you're hitting and you're sparring. Someone throws a jab, you get hit. Someone throws a jab, you get hit. But when you get hit long enough in business, you can kind of see it coming and almost avoid it, right? So it's not necessarily about doing something one time and it's going to explode and you're going to be monumentally successful. Just be realistic with this. Apply the fundamentals I told you and stay consistent. Stay trustworthy, and that's important. If this video helped you at all, one thing I want to know is, for you guys listening, are you guys building any type of businesses right now? Or are there any things you guys are working on right now? If so, I'd love to hear more. You don't have to tell me everything, but I'd love to hear what kind of businesses you guys are working on, or maybe some side hustles you guys are trying to do. And the last question I would have for you is, out of these points that I mentioned, these 7 or 8 points here, which one do you think hit the hardest for you, or which one do you think you resonate with the most? Once again, guys, to tie up this video, the last thing I want to say is, for the people that watch these videos and, kind of stick around to the end of them, I want to say I appreciate every one of you. If any of you guys ever want to, talk about, everything related to building an audience on YouTube, content creation, whether it's improving your resume, finding a better job, investing, anything like that, I do have an option under the videos and an option in the YouTube description to book a consult call with me. And as well, if you ever want to talk anything sales specific, landing a high-paying sales job in 90 days, something that's, actually could kind of change the course of your career. I do have a link in the description for that as well. So like I said, if you ever want to talk to me one-on-one personally about either of those things, I do have links to talk with me. But if not, that's okay too. Just wanted to let you guys know. But I hope this video was helpful. Hope you guys gained some value in it, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.